How's it going, guys? This is Kyle from Hendrix Ceramics. Right now I'm going to be making some soup bowls. These are the bowls that we use the most at home. I call them soup bowls, but you know, they're kind of an everything bowl, sort of small, medium size. So we're going to get started here. Get this on here. So I'm using Reclaim clay that I wedged up by hand after I dried it out. So right from the beginning here, I'm gonna wheel wedge this a couple times because this clay is a little uneven. If I was using fresh clay from a bag, I would maybe give it one, but I'm gonna give it 2 or 3 wheel wedges. Just try to get this homogenized. I've been making these soup bowls for a while now and they're pretty popular. People seem to really like them. I know we like to use them. All right, so first and foremost, for the centering of this bowl, these are sort of like most bowls, lower, a little wider. So I'm gonna center my ball of clay lower and a little wider, make it easy on myself. Now I'm gonna open this up and I'm gonna use my thumb in the middle. I'm gonna kind of press down with my right hand and make a nice opening. And right away that opening, I'm making it on an angle. So it already has sort of a bowl interior shape from the very beginning. Now I'm gonna open this the rest of the way. I like to use my sponge for this part. And you'll notice I always have my hand, my exterior hand is pressing back on the bottom portion of the clay as I'm opening it, just to kind of keep that nice and tight in there. So now, same thing, thumb's going on the outside, and I'm gonna work this center and just kind of compress it a little bit. Now, if you're a beginner, this can be a good time to check the depth. I throw these with the intentional, I like to have a taller foot, so I'm making sure I leave some clay down there that I can trim it. If you're unsure, you can always take your needle tool, press it directly in, stick your finger right towards the clay, pull it out, and then you can see how much depth you have there. So at this point, I'm gonna take my flexible rib. I like these Mud Tool red ribs, these little guys. These are my favorite. So I'm gonna use this tool right here. I'm just gonna give this a little bit more compression. And you'll notice right away that I have a nice rounded bowl shape interior right from the beginning. So whenever you're throwing something like that, it's important that you work that out early and often. That way you don't have to try to establish a shape later on when the walls have gotten thin. So now I'm gonna do my first sort of a pseudo pull. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put my thumb on the exterior towards the bottom, hands on the inside, and I'm gonna roll my thumb up over the top as a pull and then also be pressing down on the rim at the same time. It all kind of happens in one motion. And I'm gonna be sure not to try to work too much clay up into the air. Otherwise it might get a little thin on the bottom or get kind of wonky. So right here we go. So I'm gonna have thumb here. These fingers are gonna be squeezing up and over, and I'm gonna be using the side of my hand here to sort of press down. And just kind of keep that rim established. And come up to the top. All right, so already there I have sort of the general bowl shape. Add a little water. I'm gonna come down here with my finger, press some of that clay in, and now I'm going to pull out, and that's gonna be the floor up in the air, and then now up. And there's the wall. Again, I'm making sure not to move too much clay too quickly. And do another now. Make this a little wider. Pretty much every time I do a pull, I kind of compress the rim. That helps the whole form sort of stay tight. I'm gonna do another pull here. Make this wall a little taller. And I'm always feeling for the thickness. All right, so now the form is up, that looks good. Get some of the slip out of here. Now I'm going to shape it. First thing I'm going to do is take my metal rib, get some of that slip off the bottom, and then I'm going to hit the wall. Get rid of some of these throwing lines, get some of that slip off. And I'm gently pressing on the interior with my hand as I run that rib across. Now I'm going to take my red rib again, and I'm going to sort of do the finishing touches on this floor. And what I'm looking for is, if for some reason a little hump started on the interior where it's uneven, this one looks pretty good. Sometimes when you press in the interior, or rather the exterior with your hands, the interior might bump up. So I'm gonna just be sure to get a nice bowl shape inside there. I'll hit this one more time, make sure it's nice and even. And now I like to put a ridge on the exterior middle here. It gives a nice place to sort of hold the bowl, and it does some fun pooling effects with my glazes, which I like. So now I'm going to hit the rib here, just gently pressing out on the interior right where that line is being established. And just sort of work this a couple times. And there it is. So last step is I'm gonna cut a little notch on the foot at the very bottom where the clay meets the bat. And I always do that, not to necessarily remove a bunch of clay, because I'm gonna trim that later, but so that way the wire cutter has a easy slot to fit under there. Clean this up. And we've got a bowl. Next is trimming. Time to trim the soup bowl that I threw. This one's been under plastic a bit. It's feeling pretty good to go. As I always do, I'm going to check the thickness of the foot area with a hand on the inside, hand on the outside. Just get a general idea of what I'm working with. I'm going to flip this over. As I always tend to do, I do not tap center my pots because I'm worried about the rims being altered if I'm tapping on the form. So it takes longer to just kind of spin it and get a general eye of where that centered position is. And it's kind of tedious at times, and if your rim is not flat, then you're really going to have a hard time with this. If your rim is not flat, it's not level, the pot's going to be on an axis, it'll be on an angle. So I try to have most of my pots be nice and flat. It's just kind of the style of work that I enjoy for my own. This one's a little bit wonky on the rim, so it's going to take me just a little bit to find it. Just kind of moving it in very subtle increments. That looks good. Okay, so now we'll lug this down. Right. So for trimming this pot, I'm going to start off with my bigger tool, and then I'm going to work down to my smaller one. Got this guy here. So first thing I'm going to do is sort of just start to establish this foot ring right away. And I've made a lot of these bowls, so I have a general idea of what I want it to look like. And when you're an experienced trimmer, you know this. If you're just learning how to do this, it's really important to be very steady with your hands, to work smoothly. Don't try to take off too much material too quickly. You'll notice in pretty much any time I'm throwing pots or I'm trimming pots, my hands are always touching and supporting one another in somewhere or another. It really helps me keep the form sturdy. You can see this has got a little wobble in it right here, and that's just because that clay is a little bit drier than I would like. And I don't mind, it can be a nice effect sometimes. So now I'm gonna use this tool. And I like a tall foot on these bowls, it's just an aesthetic decision. So I'm gonna start to carve out that foot ring. So now we're going to move to the inside. First thing I do is establish where that inner diameter is and start to work my way down and start moving material from the center. As you're developing your forms, you can start to experiment with how tall you want your foot, how thick you want it. Just be sure that you kind of got a plan as you're making the pot on the wheel so that you're leaving yourself enough material. Because if you want a nice tall foot and you throw that bottom thin, it's not going to work out. I'm going to glaze the interior of this foot ring. I think it adds a nice touch when you flip it over. You see some nice color and decoration down in the bottom. So having a tall foot can help with that as well, because I'm not super worried about the glaze running out and hitting the shelf and ruining the pot and the firing. Alright. So one thing you can do is you can feel the center with your hand. If it's got a little flex, you're getting thin, so you probably need to stop. If it feels pretty dense there, you can take a little more material off. Like I said, I've made these for quite a while, this form, so I've got a general idea of how to do these. So I'm gonna use my fingers and burnish this edge, kind of soften that. Starting to feel pretty good. Hit this with one more pass. All right. Now I'm going to come back here and just finalize the foot. I'm putting some edges on here that are going to kind of mimic the aesthetic exterior of this bowl. Pretty good. At this time too, if I see there's a little bit of texture on the exterior of this that I don't love. So what I'm gonna do is, easy trick to smooth that out. I'm gonna take my sponge. It's gonna add a little moisture on there. And then I've got my favorite little red rib here from Mud Tools. And I'll just run a red rib on there just to kind of burnish anything might have appeared. All right, there we go.